Hi there, and welcome back to our book club with Up a Notch Learning Inc. We have with us today Amrit Malhotra, who is a registered social worker with dozens of years of experience in Ontario, Canada. And my name is Stephanie Dobson, and I am the CEO and founder and content creator of Up a Notch Learning Inc. We're very happy to have you here today. The idea of our book club is to bring to light some of the really important resources that families can utilize as they go through their journey of separation and divorce, and just to highlight some of the themes and some of the things that we learned and some of the things we wanted to highlight for you as parents going through a separation and divorce. So welcome, Amrit. Thank you so much again for coming.
My pleasure.
So we have with us today, the book that we're looking at is called Mom's House, Dad's House for Kids. And it's by the author is Isolina Ricci. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Now, you may have seen in our other video, we've also looked at the adult version or the parent version that's called Mom's House, Dad's House for Kids. And so, Mom's House, Dad's House. And so today we're going to be looking at the kids version. Which, as we can both attest to, is much easier to digest. It still is quite lengthy, but this one has bigger writing and some colors in it and some tips and kind of broken down a little bit easier. Its intended audience is around the 10 years old or up, and it's intended, as the author describes very well at the very beginning, it's intended for parents to either be reading it with their children or for children to be reading it themselves, or kind of a combination of both. And so, Amrit, let's get started by talking a little bit about some of the central ideas in the book, some of the themes, just to get us started.
Okay, perfect. Well, some of the central ideas that were mentioned in this book were designed to help understand children's experiences. The experiences are affirmed and validated, and the opening dialogue provides a framework of reference for separation, divorce, and transitioning to a step family. So it's chock full of information, which is very helpful. It helps to order and structure some of the major life transitions, and it also empowers the children without overwhelming them. And it also reinforces the importance of the role of a parent, and while providing some life skills, and it gives an attitude of resiliency so that children can bounce back from a tough time.
And interesting. I'm just going to pick up on a couple of things that you said there.
Mhm.
One talked about the various points in a transition from one home into two, and you talked about the very beginning stages, but also even step families and step parents, and so it really does go through the gamut of the entirety of the situation. And so for kids, as they're going through this book, they can pick and choose where they would be, which parts that they would be reading that would be most applicable to them, based on the stage that they're at. And so I found that to be very, very helpful. I also really liked how this normalized the feelings that children might be going through, and really speaks to them in a language that I felt was very appropriate for that age, ages 10 and up, sort of that preteen, teenagehood. And just even some examples of normalizing the stages, normalizing how, parents arguing is normal, and this is what you're going to feel and hear, and normalizing that. Talking about parents putting kids in the middle and what that looks like from an empowerment point of view, helping kids to identify that and to know what's okay and what's not okay, and then to give them really some tips on what to actually do when these different things happen. Talking about the legal issues, parents going out and having, and then ending up possibly leading into a step family type situation. So I really felt that at all stages of the separation and divorce process, moving from one home into two, it could really be beneficial for kids. So let's talk about what we really liked and what we weren't so fond of. So why don't do you want to go ahead first, Amrit.
Sure, sure. I really like the focus on resiliency and the tools that were given because it helps the children to find their voice and to help them navigate the life experiences they may be going through. But I really the thing that was most impactful for me when I read that was there's one chapter on protecting self from real danger, and I think that that was really essential when you're dealing with intimate partner violence potentially, or you're introducing new people into the children's lives, for children to maintain their safety. So they speak about safety plan and validating the experiences that children may be going through, normalizing the upset and the confusion while at the same time providing some direction.
Hmm. And did you have anything that you weren't so fond of?
No, I really enjoyed this book. In fact,
I
I'd
know.
almost
I
say
I
that if you had to
struggled.
choose,
I struggled.
if you had to choose between these two books, I'd almost say that it'd be great for the parents to read this book. I
Hmm.
think if they did a once go through with this book, it could be immensely helpful for the children, and then they could go through it with the children. They have,
Hmm.
similarly to the adult version, they have all kinds of really nice checklists and things that are beneficial.
Yeah, and interestingly, talking about the parents reading this book, um, even understanding the situation from the kid's point of view, and the author really describes what could be going on for children as distinct from what's
Mhm.
going on for the adults in the situation. And so, by the parents
Yes.
reading this book, I feel that they're even better equipped uh, to help their children because otherwise they may not even know that this was something that they needed to turn their mind to. But the author really pinpoints some things, and part of what I feel is our job as parents is to give our kids tools to become independent, tools to as they go through their childhood, because eventually they will be going out on their own. And so that's what I really
Yes.
liked about this book is it gives children those tools to put this stuff into action and really to problem solve. Even the part
Yes.
where they talk about um, uh, ways to problem solve little problems, and then ways to problem solve bigger problems and even bigger problems, right? Sort of it goes sort of along the spectrum, and it talks about how to actively listen. They call it cool listening, and that sort of thing. So I really enjoyed that. um, I also really enjoyed actually the first couple of pages was really impactful for me. It gives an introductory, the author gives an introductory message to parents, and it also gives an introductory message to the kids about who the author is, and sort of and really humanizes the author as to why who she is and what her family's like, and her grandchildren and all of that sort of thing, to really connect with children. I imagine in a child's uh, when as they're reading this, that would really help them to connect with the author and really feel a little bit closer to that. So that was really good. The things I liked. The one the one challenge that I had with it, I'm a real stickler on language, and the second or third part of the book where it talks about step family relationships, I understand why they call it step family relationships, because it is a term of reference of someone who is married to your parent, um, and children who are not your children necessarily. But it talks about step parents and step siblings, and it also talks about half siblings when there's a new baby involved with your parent and their new partner. And to me, I'm a real stickler on saying there's no half and there's no step in family. Family is just family. And so that, again, that's a real minor point, but that's really the only thing that I could pick out, because again, just like you said, the book was amazing. So to really pick out those
Mhm.
points, to me, I think it's important to talk about family, and a new family, a modern family, a family in two homes, that sort of thing. But it's
Yes.
still family. It's not just because your half sibling is not fully both of your parents' blood doesn't mean it's a half. It's 50% family or something. That, to me, that was really the only point. Minor, very minor.
No, but she in this book, they also talk about the names that you're going to call your additional parents, right? And I think
Yeah.
that that was really good. It was really
Mhm.
mindful, and she brought up the fact that there are cultural names that could be used, but
Mhm.
it could be a combination of using the first name with Papa or whatever, just
Yeah.
as an example. So I thought that was good because it's again, it's about empowerment, empowering the children to be able to use whatever words are feeling comfortable for them in the context that they're in. So I think that was
And
really good.
even giving them some tools on how to engage in that conversation, because parents might not think about that being a struggle for a child as to what do I call this person. And so just even bringing that to the
Yes.
forefront, bringing that to the consciousness of this is what we're dealing with, and this is what I am dealing with as a child, and giving them some tools on how to even bring that conversation up with your parent.
Right.
um
And I think also
yeah, go on. Hmm.
oh, I was just going to talk about the she raises a really great concept of family being an ice cream party. I really enjoyed
Mm,
that.
yes.
There's a family swirl concept, a family smooth, and a family sundae. It's a kid-friendly way of demonstrating the creation of new or modified or combined traditions for celebrating and spending time together, which I thought was really
Mhm.
great. It doesn't have to be one way or another. In fact,
Mhm.
you can end up with a flavor that is amazing because it's a combination of both, right? So it
Mhm.
can enrich a person's life as well. So I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's just carry on with that just for a moment around the language in the book. I thought that she did a really good job of explaining things in a kid-friendly way. And so, for example, even using things like special energy was the way that she described
Yes.
adrenaline, and follows it through with some examples on how to deal with these things, and even talks about legal concepts and explaining how your parents are going through a particular journey as well. They may have to meet with lawyers or mediators or judges, or go in, being in court, and really to help them to understand in a way, in a kid friendly language, about what their parents are going through. So again, it's normalizing it, and it's explaining it in a way they might be hearing words in their household like custody and child support, and what does that mean, and how does it impact me as a child. So I thought she, even some terms like creep ups for memories that come back from your life in, your former life in one home. Even talking about using the word worry soup. So I just thought that the language was brilliant in the book.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah, I think it was really easy to understand, and giving the tools that was the most important thing for the children.
Easy to use tools, exactly. What would
Yes.
you say impacted you the most about the book?
From a mental health perspective, I really like the idea of self-care and knowing
Mhm.
what's happening internally for the child. So when they're starting to get that special type of energy, to know how to release it and how to self-soothe and how to ask for help when you need it. So I think those are really essential tools, life skills that are going to be beneficial throughout
Yes.
their journey.
Yes. And
Yeah.
in fact, I had a very similar response to that question that actually builds upon that. Is the idea of resilience is not necessarily doesn't necessarily happen by osmosis. Resilience is created, resilience is built, and here's some tools on how to do it. Now, again, because the book can, I mean, it's an easy to read book, but I mean, we're adults, and it might be a little overwhelming for kids. But the nice thing is that there's a bit of a legend at the beginning, and it really um, helps to set some things out, to bring out some valuable points. And one of the things I liked was this TYB, train your brain. And so that's really
Yes.
throughout the book. And that talks about resilience, is creating the resilience. You have to train your brain to be resilient. And how do you go about
Yes.
doing that? There's exercises at all different parts. It really permeates throughout the book.
Yep.
Um,
Yes.
was
Absolutely.
um, was what really impacted me um, the most. Um, all right, what new things did you learn?
Well, I was just just trying to pull up the page. They also have really great section just on your rights as a kid, which again, it was also addressed in the adult book, but the child having a right to refuse to carry messages from one parent to the other.
Yes.
Right? I have the right to leave the room when my parents argue, and if that's not possible, I have the right to ask them to please not argue in front of me. I have the right to love both of my parents equally and not take sides. I have the right to not listen to anyone who says mean or disrespectful things about my parents. I have the right to refuse to spy on a parent or a grandparent or other family member. And it goes on. Yeah, I think it's just wonderful because there's a real concept of getting the child out of that miserable middle that she speaks about.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Right?
No, I had pinpointed that as well about thinking about it from the kids' point of view, and them and the kids really understanding that um, it this is what it means to be the priority, right? And kids can really learn that, and they may not know, they may be confused about some of the things that their parents are doing, that parents intend to act in the best interest of their children, but a lot of parents don't necessarily know what that actually means. How do I do such a thing? And so both of these books actually really, I think, are valuable not only for kids, but for parents, because it does give them the practical tools about how to put their kids first and what are the kids' rights. And in the adult version, it talks about the Family Bill of Rights. And in the kids' book, it talks about what are the kids' rights from their point of view. So I really like that one too. Um, what I would say was something new that I learned, or I guess I suppose to build upon the um, the tools that I have in my toolbox, was the power of, she calls it power daydreaming, and the idea of thinking about um, the future. If you're in a very difficult situation, thinking about the future. Um, my dream is, if my dream was true, I would have the following feelings, and this is my little goals, and this is what I want to do moving forward. And I really like that because it I believe that it would help children to focus on a better future, because they might be going through a whole lot of struggles themselves, and how do they get to that next step? What are their goals? And the first thing to achieving a goal is, of course, to make the goal, and to really to do what she calls power daydreaming. I really, to me, that was a new concept that I know I'm going to take into my practice for sure, into my day job. So I love that. Um, did you have any questions that weren't answered, or things that you thought that were left out about in the book?
I think it really touched. It was an amazing book. It touched on so many different areas. There wasn't anything that was left out from my perspective. Did you feel there was anything that she could have done more about?
Well, having regard to the fact that this was published back in 2006, it's a staple within divorcing families, but that's probably the reason why what was the emphasis on technology, and how technology can really
Ah,
um, help and can positively impact your family. I know nowadays there's lots of co-parenting apps, for example, that even have free kid access, and some of them even have video chat through an app. Of course, there's lots of different ways to video chat these days, but the ability to connect on so many different
yeah.
levels with either the other parent, or to connect with extended families, or to keep organized. It talks in the book about having a calendar up on a fridge, or having a shared calendar between the families.
Yes.
And what we know of today is that the use of technology has really impacted co-parenting relationships, and enhanced it. So again, not really a criticism because it was published so long ago, but definitely if there was a revised version, I would say that would be a great addition to this book as to how it could help.
It's a must get. I would suggest everyone get one.
um, Was it? Do you think it was well suited to the intended audience? And we talked at the beginning; it was intended for 10 years old and up, sort of through those preteen, teenagehood, for kids, but also for parents to use as a resource um, uh, to give to their kids, but also to read it with them. What do you think? Do you think it was meant? Do you think it was met the intended audience?
I believe it met the intended audience. I think the selection of language and the kid-friendly way of presenting ideas, I think it was really well done. I like the
Mm-hmm.
little diagrams that were sometimes provided, and the lot. There was lots of white space. There was the text was nice and large, so it didn't seem too onerous. I think
Mm-hmm.
for children to read, but I also, as I mentioned before, I think it would be just as good for parents to read because I think they
Mm-hmm.
can glean a lot from it. And for some, this may be an easier read
Mm-hmm.
than the more adult version. I think that this could be their starting point, and then they can go to the other one. So it could be another tool for
Absolutely.
parents.
Absolutely. For me, I agree. The only thing that I would add, I really liked and I had said it a little bit earlier in our discussion. Really, the colors that were in on the page, and really pulling together some concepts and making it very practical. The sort of workbook kind of thing, where kids could actually answer things for themselves and give their
Mhm.
answers in. Um, as they went through the book. So I thought it met its intended audience for sure. Absolutely. Did you have any specific passages that struck you as significant?
Let me just take a look here. Um, so I really like this one. The concept of adult relationships are mysterious, and it's not up to the kids' job. It's not up to the kids to figure out what's happening. So I think that's important. The theme that the parents are the ones that have to sort out their issues and not the children. So that just gives
Mm,
them that opportunity to be able to step away. I think that's
mm,
that's really important. And the concept of getting the child out of being that miserable middle and giving back those issues to the parents to sort out.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. For me, it was the section on siblings and how siblings can help. Talking about if you're an only child,
Mm.
these are the kind of things that you would want to think about. And if you've got siblings, and various age, it even goes through the various age ranges of siblings and what they might identify. Not only on an emotional level, what they might identify with their siblings of various ages, and how siblings can provide support to one another. I thought was really to me very impactful, because kids need to stay connected. They need to be connected, and of course they can be connected to extended family and grandparents and aunts and uncles and neighbors and all of these things. But really, when we talk about it as a family, those are the people that you're going to be there every single day with, and they're
Yes.
going through it with you. And so to feel like you're a united team can be very, very helpful, to lean on each other. And it gave some tools on how to do that. Um,
Absolutely.
and we talked a
Mhm.
lot about the step families. To me, that was a very impactful section of the book. It was quite a lengthy section of the book, but it really, again, helps to normalize that situation and normalize the emotions that go along with it. And the again, another layer to having two homes is, having sort of possibly four parents and a whole bunch of extra siblings, and how to really deal with that. The emotional component around that was very impactful as to how she described that, and um, gave some tools to kids to be resilient through those huge, huge changes in their life. Because I mean, moving from one home to two is huge, but then again, moving from two homes with one parent to, I mean, even it might even end up being another move, right, for the kids. And it's a
Yes.
whole nother ball game is the step
Mhm.
family situation. So I really appreciated that section of the book. It was really
Yes.
helpful.
She also spoke about the distant or the absent parent, and I thought that was important too for anyone, for a child that's reading this book, so that that be acknowledged, that there's special feelings around that, and ways to cope with it. I think that was very helpful too.
Hmm. Yeah. it's really hard to choose. There's so many amazing parts of this book that parents can really and can take away and can be so so impactful in a positive way on their children. And again, I have this book just like I have the adult version. I have the kids version as available in bulk in my office, and I love giving it away to families, either the physical one, the Audible, or the ebook version as well. Um, the terms, do you think that the terms and concepts explained in the book, we've talked about the language of the book. Do you think that the terms were explained well? What do you think?
I think they were explained in ways that children could understand. So I think it's
Hmm.
age appropriate. We're thinking about age 10, right? So I think that was good. I mean, she talked about feelings in relation to a soup, in that they're all mixed in and there may be many different emotions and lots of feelings that you might have. And I think that that's really helpful, so that
Hmm.
children understand that it's variable, right? Like what, and it may be different for different people depending on the circumstance.
Hmm.
So that, what about you? How did you feel about
Yeah,
the language?
I thought that it really covered the gamut of what some of the common questions would be, like, that kids would
Mhm.
have as they go through their separation and moving into two homes. And it would be some things that parents may not know how to explain, but and may not
Mhm.
even know that they should explain these things. And so I really thought that it was it really covered a lot of the common questions, and it explained. I think that it explained it great. And not only did it explain it, but it also backed it up with resources and cheat sheets and checklists and sort of journaling and that sort of thing. So it really, to me, it really went through it in a digestible way. Um, in particular, I talked about I wanted to remark on the idea of taking care of oneself. And
Mhm.
so often parents are the ones to take care of kids, but this really helps when they're not sure if they have, if their parents aren't necessarily there for them at every single moment. It really gives them some tools to be able to do things on their own, and it explains it to them in what I feel is a very kid-friendly way. Um, and so I think it's a real well, I'll call it an encyclopedia, just like I called it an encyclopedia
Mhm.
for the adult version. But I think it's a very digestible encyclopedia. So anyway,
Absolutely.
it's been great talking to you, Amrit, and thanks so much for going through this. It's so important for parents to have great resources as they're going through their separation and divorce, and for us as professionals to really help them to focus on the positive and to empower them to be able to thrive as they move into two families. So I think that we by discussing this book, again, it's Mom's House, Dad's House for Kids by Isolina Ricci. And I think that she's an amazing author who really has some positive things to help parents and kids as they're starting out and wanting to create a really solid foundation as they go forward. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak today. It was good seeing you. Bye.
Thank you.